So then that's when I decided I am not going to go down with the business. I'm going to leave. So that was my last day of Kikki.K, and they were awful. The lawyers put me against the team and it was awful. And I thought, no, I'm going to start again. I'm going to be back in control. And here I am.
Hey lovely, Lisa here, and before we dive into today's episode of She Talks, I have got a little favour to ask you. If this podcast has ever made you feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more inspired, or a little less alone in this wild ride of running your own business, then I would love you to leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. I know it sounds like a small thing, but it really helps get She Talks into the ears of more incredible women just like you, and it helps us keep bringing you the good stuff. And if there's an episode that made you go, oh my God, every woman in business needs to hear this, please share it with someone you love. Text it to your business bestie, add it to your stories, or drop the link in a group chat. However you do it, we are so grateful. All right, that's it from me. Let's jump in. Imagine building a global empire, 130 stores across the world, over 1,000 staff, and $85 million a year in annual revenue. Now, imagine losing it all. That's exactly what happened to Kristina Karlsson, founder of beloved stationery brand Kikki.K. She went into administration not once, but twice, and had to watch the company she poured her very soul into slip from her hands. But that's not where her story ends. In this episode, I sit down with Kristina to talk about what happens after the fall, the grief, the identity crisis, the questions that no one warns you about. We also explore her comeback, what reinvention really looks like, how she rebuilt her self-worth, and why she's still dreaming bigger than ever. It's raw, it's hopeful, and it's proof that sometimes rock bottom isn't the end. It's the start of something even more meaningful. Kristina, I am so excited to welcome you to the podcast today. In fact, I am that excited, I'm not even sure where I'm going to start. So we are just going to get cracking. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm excited too. I admire what you're doing, and I'm really excited to share hopefully some things that will be valuable for your listeners.
Yeah, and Kristina, I want to share with our beautiful listeners today that we were just having a little bit of a chinwag off air about the Kikki.K story and the Kristina piece that's woven into that. And I suppose what I admire the most and why I've been so excited about having you on the podcast today is the fact that your journey hasn't been all, roses and champagne. It's had plenty of really icky bits, and you talk vulnerably about those. And I love that. And I'm just so excited to chat to you. So firstly, from one sister to another, congratulations for calling a spade a spade.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, as I was saying off air, I think always we should start recording straight away when we jump on, because the gold bits are often before and after having a podcast myself. And I'm always like, I should have just pushed record and then edited in there. But yes, I think it's a bit of an advantage for me now as a speaker is really, really I've got a few new ventures happening, but one is speaking, which I love because I feel like there is not enough speakers talking about the failures, and it's a hard thing to do. So I understand why people don't do it, but I feel like that's a little bit of my superpower now, because I had an amazing success and that was all amazing. But of course, success is never a straight success. It's always ups and downs and things that people don't see. And that's just small business and life. But I also do think that I managed the big failure, which was very public failures, to administrations quite well, because I have invested so much in my personal growth. And I think that's why I'm now running a coaching program, really focusing on personal growth, because I feel like that's what's my lifeline in some ways through business and work-life balance, and never had a burnout. So I feel I've managed that quite well, but still learning, as we all are.
You've hit the nail on the head there. It's the vulnerability. And I think in life, anybody who says we're not going to be challenged. Or my listeners will know I'm quite derogatory about Walt Disney, for example, this idea of Rapunzel, let your hair down and I'm going to ride off into the sunset on a horse with a prince. I mean, it's bullshit. And we don't talk enough about how life is actually painful. And I have a teenager, she's 14. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is reminding her when she has a day at school that was a bit ick. This is actually life. Like, life is not always going to be TikTok and McDonald's. There's plenty of moments in which it's pretty shit. And those of us that are able to vulnerably share and also, I suppose, not attach our egos to that failure, but actually see it as a lesson. I'm not surprised you're in demand on stages for that story. That's such a gift that you have for the world.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was speaking to someone who's also a speaker, and he said I wouldn't be surprised if you're actually going to make your new business based on the failures actually more successful than the first one. And I feel like now with starting a new business, and I started a new stationery brand because I love that, and I run my coaching, and then I have book clubs because I love reading. It's kind of really, really aligned with my values. And Kikki.K certainly was. I mean, when I was driving that, it was certainly all about my values, but I never actually thought that I was going to love a new business. It's almost like having a second child. You think, how can I possibly love that child as much as I love my first one? And I was like, oh gosh, how are we going to do this? And then when you have a second child, it's just a no-brainer. It just comes automatically. And now with my new business, I actually love my new business more because we became a really big business, and I was driving that. So I'm not, it was my own fault, but we became too corporate, too big for my liking. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I like to get things done really quickly. I'm not good at sitting discussing it. I'm not good at board meetings, just not me. So I am really excited about creating a brand that is so aligned with my values still, and still got a little bit of stationery in there, and still can share, all the things that I'm learning. So I'm in a really good space. And, sometimes the hardest part by losing a business is, what am I doing now? And it was my nickname. So almost like identity crisis, like even for me to call someone and not introduce myself as a Kikki.K person was really challenging. And, the people who took over the business, I can share, I don't know where we're going to go here, but the business that runs our business, my previous business, Kikki.K now, actually blocked me, sent me legal letters. It was kind of a really weird situation. But what I love about that is that I'm like, I am so glad that I didn't go with them, because so many people said to me, you should be open, because I went through administration not once but twice. And the first one I went with a new business partner, and that didn't work out. And then now I was like, the second one, I was like, no, I am going to start again. I'm going to run my own business again, and I'm going to be in charge of my life, which I think as entrepreneurs, that's ultimate where we want. It's the freedom and the excitement to create something that we love.
And I want to break that down for our listeners, because I feel, and we'll talk about Kikki.K in a moment, because, you built an empire and there's lessons in that. But I want to just break down some of the pieces that you've just shared with us right now, Kristina, because I know that our audience is almost entirely women, and most of them have businesses of their own, and they're very passionate about building businesses. And I have such a piece of advice around never taking your business and making it yourself. It must be an entity that stands on its own. But that's only because my story is so similar to yours. My empire wasn't as big as yours, but I lost my nappy brand and had bitter bile in my throat for a number of years, trying to figure out what the fuck next, and feeling somewhat cheated and ripped off. And I think She-Com, similar to your current business, it's the closest thing to my heart I could come up with in the world. And I think that's when we find real flow. So we definitely have to have a glass of wine together soon, because there's a lot of commonality there. But I think for women listening, I want to just remind you that I've had 7 companies in the last, 18 years or something now, and they haven't all been successful. And I want you to realize that if right now you're listening to this podcast and you're stuck, you're feeling somewhat broken or stuck, or like there's not flow in the business that you're currently building, it doesn't need to define you. There may be another business that can be born from this, or perhaps you improve the one you've already got and head in a different direction. But I think that as Kikki, or as Kristina and I have just said, even I call you Kikki.K, Kristina, I'm so sorry. This must just have taken taken years for everyone to relearn what to what to call you. But I think as we're both living proof right now, there can be a life after the one you think is your whole world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you get the chance to, what I did is to, I am so proud of what we created. You know, when I started, I came from another country. I had no idea about business. English was my second language, still is. And I had no network. So I am really proud of that I came up with something that I absolutely was so passionate about and loved. And then we made it a success, not just in this beautiful country, but globally. And now when I meet people, like even a couple of nights ago, I was at a book launch, and I try not to introduce myself as part of Kikki.K anymore, because I want to move on. But it's, people always introduce me from that. So that I completely understand that. But people have so much love for that brand. It almost became a cult, and so much more than stationery, because that was obviously the intention. But I'm so proud of what we did. And not just me, the team, and how we navigated. We're in 6 countries, which is difficult, as you would know. And we became such a loved brand, and I'm so proud of that. So for anyone who is going through that, listening, that might have lost their business or might be worried about losing their business, there is no such a thing, in my opinion, unless you completely give up as failure, because I think it's more failure not starting that business, or more failure not actually having a go. And as long as you learn, and I now see, as I was sharing with you before we pushed record, is like, I know every challenge that comes my way, I'm like, okay, that's here for me to learn something. And if you can have that attitude, there's no such a thing as failure. And if you can start again, and no one can ever take away your knowledge, your experience, and your attitude. And if you have all that, you have all the ingredients to start again.
Yeah, and I think I have a tattoo on my arm, Kristina, that says fortune favors the brave. And I'm pretty sure that you've obviously got a massive dose of bravery in there too. But I think that comes along with the concept that we can be brave and be all in. And then sometimes we have to call it and go on and do something else. And I think for women out there, better to have been all in than half in. That's how I approach it. But what I would love to do is, if we're going to talk about the Kikki.K story, let's talk about that. And I would love to frame it as from 2 different sides. I'd love to know, like, some of the reasons why you think the brand grew so hugely, and what were some of the bits you got right. And then afterwards, let's have a look at maybe some of the bits that were the unstucking of Kikki.K.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I start from beginning, so when I came to Australia, this is a long time, like it's 30 years ago, before internet. It's hard to believe. But I was really lost. And when I came here, I was missing home. And, I met my partner, Paul, in a ski resort. That's the reason why I came here. But I was it wasn't part of my plan to come here. And I was really lost. And I felt it was so far away from my friends who are all in Europe or US. And then, Australia felt so behind and so far away. But obviously that's changed when internet came along. But I was whinging and complaining every day, asking anyone who would listen, what am I going to do with my life? And one morning at 3 a.m., my partner had enough of that question, and he said, why don't we turn on the light and write down what is important to you? So my first lesson is to really take some time to dream. So that's what I did. So I wrote down that I wanted to drive to work every day, loving it. I wanted to have a business on my own, and then I wanted to have something I was passionate about, and I wanted to have a connection with my country being Sweden, and then I wanted to make $500 a week. So that was kind of my foundation to start this business. And because I thought I had no idea what the business was going to be, I thought I'm going to go out and buy some products, and then I'm going to sit down and in my beautiful home office to think. When I went out back then, it was office work, it was newsagents, and it was Myers and David Jones stationery department that had any kind of stationery. It was so boring. And then I got excited, to make a very long story short. And then we started, and I didn't have any money, so I convinced my partner to sell his house to open the first store. So that's kind of how that kind of started. And then the drive, I was never driven by money, funnily enough. And now I'm so driven by money because I lost everything. So it's interesting how things come our way. I was driven to make that $500 a week just to live well and go to Sweden once a year. That was important to me. But I was never a person who aspired to have lots of investments and money. I just want to do what I love. And that's kind of really still true today. I definitely want to go back to my money lifestyle that I had, but it's a good carrot to have. But basically, I was driven by the excitement over the products that we created, and I was excited about globally expand because I love dreaming big. And I think all of us, if we just set goals and just do the planning, we often look at where we are today and then we stretch ourselves to perhaps a little bit bigger turnover or what we think we can achieve. When we dream, and that's why I'm so passionate about dreaming, because that's when you remove yourself from your everyday life and you think about, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? If I had all the money and the skills and the resources and the money and time to do whatever I want, what would I actually do with my life and my business? And when you remove those kind of obstacles, you really get to what's close to your heart. And I think that's what we all should be doing, something we really love, because it's so much easier to, as you know, to do something we love and we're passionate about. And that's really what drove me to kind of look at my favorite cities. I was excited about opening in my favorite city being, Paris, London, New York, etc. And then so that was like the dream really big, and then you start small because you can't start big when you just starting out. But what really drove me then, once I got into it, was we run our business as a fashion business. So every season we had new products coming in and things going. And I often look at that. I was like, oh my gosh, hardly anyone have seen this amazing journal or this amazing design. And I was like, I felt sorry for the people in the UK and the US and Sweden, etc., not to have access to our products. That's how I kind of felt. And then I think, take a big bite and chew like hell and enjoy. And obviously we had a massive team in the end, and we had, such an amazing success as well, which certainly helped. We had back then there was not a lot of female entrepreneurs. So the successes came from a lot of PR. Back in the days, there were magazines and TV and radio. We won a lot of awards. So that's kind of really things that we did right. And I think there are three things that, to answer your questions, but I wanted to give you some context. One was to really set a big vision. So we all knew it was on our wall where we were going. So it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to give up, but having that really global dream and that vision was number one. And number two was to have a really amazing team. So obviously I wasn't good at a lot of things, still aren't. And I just we created a culture that was people want to be part of. And, in the end, we had over 1,000 employees, because in retail, you need so many people. And that's, for me, that was the hardest part for sure. But I think we did the culture right. We had aligned values, and we had a brand that was all around a purpose. So for us, it wasn't just stationery. And it was so interesting. And that's why I started a brand again, because people used to come into Kikki.K looking for journals when they just got divorced or just got diagnosed with depression or cancer or lost a relationship or someone passed away. And I think for a lot of people, unless you go to a therapist straight away or have a really close friend that you can call, journaling is a really good first step. And that's why I've started a brand again now called the Dream Life Store, because I'm so passionate about journals. And then I think the one that made us successful in the early days, I'm not sure what the percentage is now, but it's really high in failure, first year, 5 year, year 7, whatever it is. I don't know what it is now, but it's definitely hard to make it. And I think first you need to have a good business and a good service, good products, whatever that is. That's like a given. That's like the foundation. But even if you have that, it's easy to fail in my view. And we had don't say no, say how on our wall. And the team hated, because I was like not taking no for an answer. I really believe that is what got us to success, because I never gave up. And it didn't mean that I went the same way. I just kept going the same way. I was always thinking, okay, this didn't work. What can we do now? And not taking no for an answer. And so many small things that I think sometimes we feel like that didn't really make us or break us. But I think sometimes in those little small moments, not giving up is absolutely vital for a small business to survive. That was a very long answer, sorry.
No, it was a beautiful answer. And there's so many things I wanted to touch on there, but not giving up, I think, is a really big part of it. There's a lot of resilience that is required to be a founder. And, listeners will have heard me talk about some of the lessons that I've been through, the bitter pills I've swallowed. And even last year here at Kikki.K, we grew too big too quick. And then we suddenly went from profits to cash flow holes and those kind of things that would be easy at certain points. And even my beautiful husband would be like, why don't you just walk away, sweetie? And I'm like, actually, what I've built here is so fucking exciting that I couldn't replace it if I tried. So all I need to do is figure out a solve. And then this year, of course, we're back in hypergrowth and profit. So I think that what you're saying is 100% correct. But I want to also acknowledge that level of commitment is not for every woman. I think one of the things I say to women regularly is that your version of success is not the same as everybody else's, and your appetite for living on the edge. There have been times in the last 12 months where I've been unable to sleep because I've been worried about paying bills. And that isn't for everyone. It does come at a cost. And I'm sure, Kristina, you've had your moments, with 2 bankruptcies of having to have a look at like, well, hang on, I'm not paying bills right now. That's got to take a toll on your nervous system. And that isn't for everyone. Has that been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. In the beginning, I used to have this is how old fashioned we used to be, because technology was not as developed as it is today. Like today is such a dream starting a business with AI, but I'm sure we're going to touch on that later. But I used to have a folder of all the paper bills that we needed to pay. And then if we couldn't pay, when we started, I knew the team inside out. They became my family and my friends. So I was like, okay, I can't pay you today, but you don't have a mortgage. You're living at home, so I can pay you. That's how I did it. And, like HR was cringing when I told those stories. But I think that's what really, sometimes that's required. And I think sometimes it's much harder doing things like that in today's world, because if people didn't agree with that, it will be on the internet within a few minutes. But I felt like we had such a great team, and like HR, I was like, I can't afford an HR. Like, let's go to a wine bar and let's sort this out. So every Friday we used to go to the George Wine Bar. We used to be in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney now, but we used to go there and we just used to have a few wines and then sort everything out. And on Monday, it's all good.
I love that. We too had 2 folders. One was pay now and one was pay later. And we used to shuffle the invoices between the 2, depending on cash in the bank.
Yeah. But can I also say, so my son, he's 17 now, but he traveled the world with me, and he started a business when he was 14 called AXA Golf. And he came to me the other day and he said, I've got some cash flow issues, because he creates golf casual wear, and we live in Manly, so he sells to the Manly market every weekend, and then he has an online business. And when he came with the cash flow issue, and this is a good point here for everyone listening, when you get to that, that's a really good sign to start negotiating with your suppliers. So I said to Axel, I said, hey, this is good, because now first ask for better terms, but also start looking at, can you get better prices, because you're becoming bigger. The cash flow issue is real, but it can also come with some good disciplines and some good ways of systemizing your business and making it more profitable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for our listeners, Gabby and I are actually off to the Canton Fair at the end of October. Yeah. We're going in as guest mentors for Titan Network's China Magic trip, which is all about how to negotiate better supplier terms. For that exact reason, Kristina, I'm a huge fan. In fact, as you grow volume, you must go once to twice a year to your manufacturer and negotiate better terms, better payment periods, as well as deposit amounts, as well as the raw buy price, and more opportunities by being present with your manufacturer to tweak and optimize production to reduce costs as well. By being actually at the cold face of manufacturing is where all of those gold bits sit. So I couldn't agree more with you on that point.
Yeah. And so interesting, because when we started back at Kikki.K, now I'm actually doing something different in the Dream Life store. We actually print on demand, which is amazing, but it's limited what you can do. But we developed this software. So now when you order a journal, and one of the things that I find really challenging, because as I evolved as a person, design became less interesting for me, but the content became much more, because I was so interested in personal growth and personal development that I started to put all those things into the product. So then I got less interested in the design. And one of the things that we used to discuss for months, I'm not kidding, is what pink are we going to have on the diaries this year? Because pink was our bestseller, and everyone from e-com to retail, from different countries, from wholesale, all had different opinions. And now we can actually have 3,000 pinks, and they only get printed when they ordered, and you can personalize and things like that. So that's really exciting. But going back to manufacturing in China, which is amazing because they have much better facilities. And, I used to produce things in Melbourne. And when I went to my supplier, this is a long time ago, they're like, oh, gosh, you're such a pain. You do want new things all the time, and you want things that we can't do in China. They're like, do you want this and that? And I'm like, oh, my God, this is me. But not everyone, but a lot of people told me, with your quantities, no way you can be in China. And I was like, yes, I'm going to take that on. I'm not going to take no for an answer. So I went to all the suppliers. But first time I went to China, I was blown away. And Axel just went to a fair here in Sydney, and I think he called me 20 times. He's like, oh my God, there's so many great suppliers, a better margin. I'm like, yes, it's so exciting. I said to him, I said, enjoy it, because once you've been a few hundred times, it's not as exciting. So I said, really enjoy it, and I think that for anyone listening as well, enjoy every stage of your business, because my first store was the most exciting store. I can't even remember when we opened our 120th store. It's that beginning, that excitement, and it's the same with suppliers. But anyway, what I went, for anyone listening and perhaps coming on any trips with you, Lisa, is to really negotiate as a small business, to really sell the vision, to talk about what are you going to do and how are you going to expand, and what's your dream and what's your goal to get to. Because if the way I negotiated really early was like, I am no one today. We are a small brand. We just have one store. We might have a couple of stores by the time we got to that. But I was like, but we're going to be global, and we are going to have, hundreds of stores. And I said, if you're part of that now, we'll be loyal. And some of them, we had to the end in terms of when I was part of Kikki.K.
Yeah. And so listeners, there's another really valuable nugget from Kristina, which is around never taking no for an answer. I'm exactly the same as you, like getting Ick Originals to market. We were the world's greenest nappies for quite a while. And that was because everybody said, oh, you have to wrap a packet of nappies in polyethylene. And I was like, well, how could I put poly packaging around an eco nappy? You use compostable resin that can be broken down in a backyard compost. And everyone was like, no, you can't do that. And it took me 2.5 years, but yes, you can do that. And I think the combination of never taking no for an answer, and secondly, selling your vision. So I was only able to bring that compostable packaging to life because I sold the vision of what I was trying to create to a resin company who is ASX listed global biotech company, and they believed in my vision, and then they worked with me to develop the product. So I think that those two pieces of like never take no for an answer, but when you take people on a journey with what you are building, create a mission and bring people on your mission, you will get better prices, you will get better quality manufacturers. I mean, I've got clients who've even asked their manufacturers to invest in them when they've had cash flow problems because their manufacturers are so invested in the vision. They're the really important pieces that are lessons here. I want to ask you a question now, Kristina, around, and I've got a feeling this will lead into another question around what didn't work, but I'm so fascinated. And I suppose another really amazing part of the success of Kikki.K was finding a cult following by offering multiple different products in collections and colorways to the same audience who can buy you whatever city they happen to be visiting. Because this is my experience of going to Kikki.K. In any Westfield that I happened to be visiting, I knew I could go and top up my stationery or my notepads or whatever I needed this week at a Kikki.K store. Now, when we're talking about the lesson for this for a female founder, it's don't just create one hero product that gets sold once and your client's done. It's all about building longevity and repeat customer rate, in lifetime value of customer, in increasing the average order value, because you go in for one journal and you come out with 19 things, which is what women who buy stationery do. That was, I suppose I would say, the master stroke of what made Kikki.K grow into so many stores with such a vast product range. And hence I want to drop that lesson and hear what you've got to say about that. But then, of course, I suppose that also became the cross on your back. Many stores, many overheads, many expectations around constant collections. And perhaps that was also the thing that undid it. But I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that, but I'll tell you why we went under, but it had nothing to do with the collections. But the things that I want to share here, there's some, I mean, we can speak for hours about this, but I do believe, like, so when I started, I didn't have any money. I borrowed 3,000 for my first little collection and then sold the house to open the first store. But back then, this is 2001 when we opened our first store, I reckon about 40% of that store was Kikki.K. I don't know exactly if it was 40, 50%, but at least half the shop was other brands. So we didn't have the funds to do as many things that we wanted to do. But that was a good thing in some ways because we bought in brands that we tried and some of them did really well and some didn't. And then we really love this, but we don't really love this. So we could kind of create our own versions of that eventually. So it was a really good learning. For example, I'm a big reader. So I now have 2 book clubs because I just love, like, almost everything that I learn still is from books. And I used to love buying in a few books that around personal growth, and they never really sold because we were such a visual store. So if the design didn't work with our products, our visual merchandiser, she would put it on the bottom shelf naturally. So I was like, well, it's not working. She said, well, yeah, but we can't have it because it doesn't work. So then I reached out to the publisher and I said there was one specific book that I loved, which was The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. And I said to her, I love this book, but the design doesn't work for us. Can we design a new cover? And we did, I don't know, maybe 5 different covers for different collections. So why I'm sharing that is like, we tried to find a solution of things that wasn't quite working, but could we do it in a different way? And I think with her book, Gretchen's book, The Happiness Project specifically, we sold more of her book than any combined bookstores in Australia, which is, we were a stationery store and we were not everywhere back then. So there's always ways to work around the things. But saying that in terms of product development, it was really important for us to have best friends. So we would create a journal and we always had an aim to have at least 2 best friends. So that would be a pen and a razor maybe. Maybe it was like another journal that works with another journal or a pencil case or whatever. So that's why we designed everything in collections. And we really run it as a fashion business, and we got really good at that eventually. But that was all about learning. And another thing I want to put in here, which I think is really valuable, is that we didn't have funds to do all this. So the first because when we opened our first store, we won so many awards and all the, the Westfields and everyone came saying, open here. And we were just like, oh my gosh, I just want to open everywhere, but we had no money. So we worked with the shop fitter. And this is why it's so important to sell your vision to your bankers, to all the people that you think don't care, because as you said before, they might be your investor. So our shop fitter then helped us to get to another 5 stores. And then we took it on private equity and we took lots of different investments, family, like we did. I think I've done almost everything that's possible in raising funds, bought some back, family, friends, angel investors, private equity, done it all. And when we got the first private equity, which is around 5 stores, that's when we went to China, and I'll never forget it because we created a recipe book, a journal, and that came from our own needs. So I was sorting, this is back in the era where you read a lot of magazines. I love food. I don't necessarily cook from all it, but I love the creativity that often comes from styling food and stuff, and it wasn't work related. So for me, that was like great. And then I organized, and I said to Paul, I think we should do a recipe organizer. I feel like I need one. And he's like, no, that's not part of Home Office. I said, no, but we're going to evolve. So we did that, became a bestseller, but we created it in Australia. It was so expensive and really limited. And then as soon as we got that cash in, went to China, and I said to my designer, tonight I did all the numbers on the spot when I found a supplier. And I said, tonight we're having champagne because it was so exciting. And that's why I was like, working with suppliers in China is just so exciting because you can just create things that is not possible here.
What if 60 Minutes could change your business? You don't need another course or another free downloadable PDF. You need actual revenue generating moves that work right now in e-commerce brands in 2025. And that's exactly what a Quick Wins call with Kikki.K is all about. In just 1 hour, our expert coaching team will deep dive into your brand, your numbers, your marketing, your sales, and pinpoint the exact tweaks that can unlock more profit, more sales, and more ease as you grow. So are you ready for some quick wins in your business? Book your call now at Kikki.Co because the faster you take action, the faster you grow your revenues. And I wanted to...
I don't know if I answer any of your questions.
No, I love that. But I need to drop a one thing I love to do is reframe stuff just to make sure our listeners didn't miss a gold nugget in there, Kristina. And the thing that I love that you shared, and I'm such a mad fan of, is wholesale other people's product ranges alongside your own products while you test the market. Yeah. So we all know that, if you have a couple of hero products and you suddenly want to go from 3 to 5 SKUs, right? Those extra 2 SKUs, they take 6 to 12 months and they've got MOQs on them, and you're not getting an opportunity to test the market, and you're also not getting an opportunity to increase your average order value quickly. So what I love for you to do is exactly what Kristina did inside a retail store, is say, well, I've only got half a store, so I'm going to go get the other half a store, and then I'm going to do it in a really low cash flow kind of way to test what people want to buy alongside my products. And so for kids fashion labels, that could be adding someone else's fedora hats and stockings and boots, go and add SKUs around that complement your SKUs without investing in manufacturing your own at the start. And it's a test and measure. It's very clever. And I love that for you. Yeah. Cognizant of time, let's talk about what didn't work, because honestly, if I did a drum roll right now, this is the whole reason that I was wanting to talk to you on the potty today, is to unpack, what do you think didn't work at Kikki.K that brought it unstuck? I'm so interested to hear what you're going to share.
Yeah. There was a lot, like with any business. It's not all, I think we plan for that curve to go like this, but the curve is always like this. For anyone who's not watching it, it basically means that the plan have a lot of ups and downs in it. And we were the same. We had lots of ups and downs over the years. We became a really good retailer, so no experience in retail, learned how to systemize that and became a really good retailer. Certainly didn't get it all right, but we did quite well there. What really got us to the end was nothing really about the running or the products, etc. However, every business has challenges along the way. We were dealing with lots of challenges during this time when we went into administration. I'll share why we went into administration, but I want to share all the other challenges we were facing with. 2016, Paul, who is my partner and also my business partner, decided to step away as the CEO. We took a big investment, a big private equity investment into our business to go even more global. And we were opening in London, etc. We were planning to go to US and all our amazing favorite cities. So we hired one CEO, didn't work out. We hired second CEO, didn't work out. So that certainly didn't help with everything. The other thing was we were dealing with Brexit in the UK, and that certainly didn't help. We had all the issues in Hong Kong. We had stores in Hong Kong. That certainly didn't help. And also paper in a tech growing society was also a challenge for sure. And retail, as some of you who are listening, is hard. You have to have the Westfields of the world, and we were in Covent Garden, the rents are just absolutely big, and we had so many sweet deals in the beginning for sure, and we still had that at the end, but there was certainly much harder to make good deals. And if you're not a high margin, and we got to 100% Kikki.K, so we had no other brands in the end, and we were really high margin products, it was still really hard, because obviously you sit with millions of dollars around our turnover was we'd got to almost 85 million a year, including e-commerce and stores. And so we sat with millions of dollars in stock. And if you sit with stock that doesn't work in the UK, it's too costly to send it back. So there was a lot of challenges that we were facing being a global business. That's why now I'm if I had my time again, global physical stock is definitely difficult. So, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done, but it was definitely difficult. Then we had the bushfires in Australia it was just so many challenges. During this time, though, we had a manufacturer from China knocking on our door a few times wanting to sell us. And this will be an interesting little sidetrack for anyone listening. We had a lot of offers over the years to being bought. And every time I looked at that, I was like, because I wasn't driven by money and I was living really well, like we had everything we needed and we traveled the world, and it was like, I just love what I was doing. And that was more important to me than anything. So every time someone said, hey, we would love to buy you, I was like, why would I sell? Because what am I going to do? All I care about is doing what I love. So as long as I have enough money. So let's just say that I sold for 100 million and I got that in my hand, I'll be like, I will just start again because that's all I need, all I knew. And, in hindsight, maybe I should have, because I lost everything. But that's a good thing when you're an entrepreneur, because when you lose everything, you just start again. But the thing is, with that, I was like, I've put so much work and so much effort and so much blood, sweat and tears into that business that I was like, if I'm going to start again, I might as well just keep the business. And we were doing well. So I was like, no, I'm not going to sell it. However, this one was a little bit different because it was so many challenges going on. And also I got to the stage, this is almost 20 years in the business. I got to a stage, Paul didn't want to be the CEO anymore. And because we had young kids, he wanted to focus on that more. He wanted to be part of it, but not continue being the CEO. I didn't love the HR that came with having 1,000 employees. So when this manufacturing business, who were, in my opinion, and probably the truth, the best manufacturer in our category in China, and they didn't do it for anyone else, but they were really, really good quality. And all they wanted was to buy us and have me and Paul as shareholders to just open thousands of stores in China. And I was not interested in opening thousands of stores in China. If they wanted to do that, they could do, and we were keeping the rest of the world and keep it as it was. But saying that, he was a billionaire, which meant that our financial situation will be very stable in terms of always trying to hustle. And after you've done that for 20 years, I was kind of ready, we were talking about it before, the sleepless nights, the sitting with too much inventory in one place, like that all takes a toll. And I kept thinking, I wouldn't mind actually just slow down a little bit and focus on what I think I was good at. And that was creating products and not running a business anymore. So we decided to do that deal. And we actually signed a term sheet. So we negotiated and we signed a term sheet. And once you sign a term sheet, the deal is done, but you have all the due diligence and all the things in the back end to do. And it took forever. As an entrepreneur, I was like, oh, so boring. So just before COVID hit, I was in Germany. So the deal was done. I was there with a team from China, and we were just talking about how we were going to do this. And one of the ladies there in the team, she said to me, I'm really worried about this virus. And I've been around for a long time now, and I've seen a few viruses, and I'm also a healthy person, optimistic person. So I said to her, let's just go and get some multivitamins and let's get on with this deal. And of course, that was COVID. And COVID was a different kettle of fish, as we all know. And especially for us who were based in Victoria, it was just a crazy time. And me being Swedish, I was listening to the Swedish news, and I was like, this is just crazy. But what that meant was, and Sweden didn't have any lockdowns, that's my point there. But and that meant that when COVID hit, first in China and then it came to the rest of the world, they pulled out, which meant that our private equity, who were waiting for a check and now instead needed to put in more funds, and they didn't want to do that, they put us into administration. And that was the saddest day of my life, because it was like, I just couldn't, like as an entrepreneur, there were so many times we were close to lose the business, and then it was out of my control or out of our control. And it was so hard. And I'll never forget it. Like the last 24 hours, I was like, even our board, our chair of our board, he organized someone to come in to talk about media exposure. And, I've been in media the whole time. And I was like, no, I don't need that. He's like, no, this is different media. And I was like, I said, no, I'm not going to go into this until we're not giving up until we're giving up. And, that's the kind of grit that we have as entrepreneurs. And when I sat down with this guy, the kind of forced me to do that. I was like, that's when it really hit me. I went home to Paul. I said, let's just do another 24 hours. Let's just see if we can save it. And we couldn't. It was too late. And because I reckon, because of the COVID stuff, there was so much complexity in this and all the other things that we had going on. And, we had some challenges too with some deals that didn't go right. It was just too many things. It was too late. And that was so sad. And it was just awful. But someone picked us up, to make a very long story short. Someone picked us up from the US. We did a deal over Zoom, and being a purpose brand, doing a deal with someone who's going to be part of your business over Zoom is not ideal. And we did a deal because there was no other option. We couldn't leave the country. They couldn't come here. And I was really quite excited about US because we'd done a bit in US, but not great. So I thought, this is our opportunity. So we started again with them and worked, like I always worked really hard, but now it was another level of hardness. So we basically just worked 24/7 for a year to turn the business around, because once you've been in administration, it's hard work and it's like running in mud. And that was a year of, just getting into it. And we did well and we're excited. And then the lockdown just got worse and worse. And then the US people out of the blue one day just called and said, hey, we don't really believe that the Australian government is going to open by Christmas, because we needed an investment for products, which we do every year, and we trade it through and then we pay it back. And that's just kind of always been our cycle. And they pulled the pin and put us into administration number 2. And that was even worse, because I was like, it was done in an awful way. It was just an unrespected way. Like the first one was at least done based on our values, and it wasn't good, but it was well done, if there is such a thing. And this one was awful. So then that's when I decided I am not going to go down with the business. I'm going to leave. So that was my last day of Kikki.K, and they were awful. The lawyers put me against the team, and it was awful. And I thought, no, I'm going to start again. I'm going to be back in control. And here I am with a new business.
Holy shit, girlfriend. I feel like I can't breathe after listening to that story. Like, I know all of the listeners right now would be feeling for you, because that's a huge, I don't even know where to start with that, to be honest with you. Just, I know the good thing is that you've had the time and grace now of a number of years to be able to recover from the kind of what must have felt pretty desolate for a while, having invested your heart and soul and your family into a business. I'd love to know, like, potentially now, I don't know if you have anything to do with Kikki.K other than to watch it as I do when I go into a Westfield, but they've had obviously a really big strategy change, and it's not stationery anymore. It's travel goods and apparel. And what are your thoughts?
Ooh, yeah, it's my truth. But you know what?
It started.
It's good in some ways. The people who run it, it's not the people that I want to be part of. So it kind of gives me the room to start again. So I've started with the Dream Life store just online, printing on demand, which is very limited. But that's kind of, for me, almost like a little side hustle now. Eventually, I want to create that to a big brand again, not the same way, but in an exciting way. So that's definitely there. And then I am so passionate about coaching and helping people. And I have so much to share, not just in business, but in the mental health space. And because I never had a burnout, and I managed that awful 2 years I think in a very good way, not in a perfect way. And, there was definitely lots of anger and hard words said and sadness and all that, because in the end of the day, any business and any really hard challenge in life, I think, comes down to grief, and that's different how we deal with that for everyone. But because I worked so much on myself, and I was quite excited about it, I wrote a book called Your Dream Life Starts Here around 2018, and I kept the rights for that. So that was really great. So I put that into a course, and then I now run a coaching program, which is really with the aim to inspire people to create their dream life. And if that's business or if that's just doing what they love, it doesn't really matter. And then because I read so much, and I still do, and I don't know if you can see, but that's my book, but it's like so many books. Like I just read and read, and I love having 2 book clubs. One is for small business that I just launched, and then one for personal growth. So I am in such a good space, and having had such a big team and such a complex business, and always traveling, always in meetings. I don't want that again. I want a small business. I want to work from wherever I want, and I don't want to have any dickheads in my team. I just want to work with amazing people, and I just want to do good things.
We have a no dickhead policy too, to be honest. Policy, no dickheads allowed. And we also have our theme for 2026, which we just built out recently at a Team Strategy Day, is the words "at what cost." So when we're pushing for new projects or we're pushing for new direction with Kikki.K, because we're pretty bold and pretty excited about what we're doing in terms of global domination, the team are allowed to ask, at what cost would that strategy be, Lisa, for the team, for the clients, it's just a check mechanism. So yes, I like those. I like those things. I want to finish the potty though with one. I mean, I agree we could talk for hours and I'm very cognizant of both of our time, but I want to finish with a question for you, Kristina, around if you were let's go back to that moment in which you had 5 stores. So you've passed the minimum viable product. You have 5 bricks and mortar stores. That's fucking epic. And for some women, you've already hit success. If you were doing that right now, I mean, we didn't get even to talk about AI today, but I'm with you. AI is a game changer for teams and for growth and for marketing and for lots of things. But if you had your first 5 stores now, what would you do differently?
I would probably keep it smaller. So the retail landscape is very different to what it was back 20 years ago, or even longer now, 25 years ago. So I would probably keep it smaller. I probably wouldn't go to UK. The Singapore store, which was kind of really early, that was such a good deal, became our biggest store. So I would definitely do that again. New Zealand, I would do it again. I probably wouldn't go to UK, and I would probably not be so driven for that global thing, because now in today's world, we sold to 180 countries or something, which kind of always blew my mind, having not grown up with internet. It was like, wow, it's just a different way of doing it. So I probably would focus more. And because when we started our internet back then, when we kind of finished, it was really patchy. Like I felt like now when we and because of inventories, all these places was so complex. Now it's so simple. So I would keep it simple. I would do less store, but good stores. And in terms of products, I probably wouldn't do anything different, because I feel like even though technology is a big help and a big thing for a lot of people do actually need pen and paper. And I think it's a mental health thing. And interestingly enough, I always wanted to work with smaller brands and do collaboration. But because of Kikki.K scale, it was minimum products that we ever did was 5,000. And it was just really difficult to do that with small brands. So now with print on demand, we did a collaboration with Breast Cancer Network Australia. And that was because I was running their, they do a fun run every year, Carmen's Fun Run in Melbourne. I used to always stand there looking at the kids running for their mums. And I was like, I just so want to help this organization and do something good. And I knew journaling is a massive part of when you get diagnosed with something difficult. So whatever that is. So we now done a inner strength journal for BCNA, and where some of the money goes to them. So you can do so many amazing things when you're smaller. So I probably wouldn't. Yeah, I would just make sure it's profitable, because otherwise we're not in business. But then maybe not drive. So, but saying that I learned so much, and we're creating something amazing, and we reach so many people. I can go to another side of the world and people know our brand. So I don't know. It's a hard question.
Yes, I know, but I'm always such a fan of wisdom, walking in the shoes of someone who's walked the road before. Sounds to me a little bit along the lines of stay leaner, stay more pivotable and more collaborative, and perhaps less bulky and less requirements of having to cash flow scrounge all the time, because as the growth chews up cash flow, so perhaps the opportunity to be less controlled by others, which has been my experience too.
Yeah.
Well, I know our listeners would have a million other questions for you, but that's it for today. And I've absolutely loved talking to you, Kristina. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today and for your very real conversation. It's been a delight to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the amazing work you're doing to support women to create their businesses. So I loved the conversation so much. So thank you.
Amazing. And listeners, don't forget to hit follow for watching our future episodes drop either on Apple or Spotify. And don't forget to slide into my DMs, LisaJones_co, and let me know what you loved about our chat today with Kristina. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of She Talks. I hope today's conversation sparked ideas, gave you strategies you can put into action, and reminded you that you're never alone on this journey. If you loved this episode, head over to Kikki.Co for today's show notes, exclusive freebies, and special offers from our sponsors. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, and most importantly, keep talking.